All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Jerred and Dave here, coming at you with another study. Today, we're going to be talking about brain endurance training and how, if you add this, it's better than any supplement you could ever take in increasing your stamina endurance just by training your brain. I think it's really interesting. Before we get into it, Dave, how's it going?
Doing good. Let's talk brain. Even better than beats too. That's been a popular one around here.
No, the results on this one are crazy, but I want to start with a story, something I did back in the day. So, when I was in ROTC in college, I was the director of training. And so I've always really been into fitness. I had like a very simple, personal training certification back in the day. And so they selected me for this position and I loved it. I was always cooking up different scenarios to train people. We would do pre-test, post-test. I really enjoyed it because I got to train hundreds of people, and I continued to do that in the military. But one thing I did with a select group of individuals, there was the standard training that everyone had to go through, but then there was this more advanced training that I was also in charge of for people who wanted kind of that next level. And it was, people either going for special operations selection, they wanted to be a pilot. They wanted their fitness to be next level. And one thing that I implemented was brain endurance training. It was through no research. I had not heard of it anywhere. What I did was I just knew that the people who I was training needed to be able to perform cognitively and then also physically. And so the idea I came up with was during training, I would like really stress and fatigue them. Let's say 5 minutes of burpees or something like that. And then immediately have them sit down at a desk and I had printed out all these math test questions, like simple stuff. I mean, nothing crazy, just enough to where you actually have to like do some work, not like 5 + 3. It'd be like 89 times 17. You're like, I'm not doing that in my head. Right. And so you have to sit down and do it. And so I'd give them these sheets of paper and see how far they can get. Never once checked if their answers were right. And they always thought that was, oh, how many questions? I'm like, I don't care. Just do as many as you can. They'd have a time limit, get as far as you can in 60 seconds. And then they'd go back to physical training, push-ups, squats, running, sprinting, like whatever. And never measured or gauged anything, but I really tried to put people under pressure and then also have some sort of like cognitive load as a part of the training because in the military, that was really important. So I feel like I was very early in the brain endurance training game. And no one ever reached out to me and said, oh, so thank you for that training. It was the reason I was successful as a fighter pilot or, special operator or anything like that. But I like to think it helped them a little bit because one thing that we did track with these people who chose this optional program was their success rate specifically in becoming a pilot. And it was like 98% success rate if you went through this additional program that I happened to be in charge of. I didn't invent this. I was just, like I said, the director of training for while I was there. And we would hand the torch over or whatever. So these people did have a higher percentage of completion compared to the average person who would be selected and go through training. But whether or not that's has to do with just because they selected it because they're more of that type of individual, kind of like the healthy user bias that they have in nutrition studies, or the fact that they were more physically fit, or could be brain training. But anyway, I wanted to start with that because I've always thought it was important and a really cool way to train your brain and ultimately deal with mental fatigue and be able to battle it better.
And even back then, your goal was to help them perform. Because I'm sure you saw. Did you see people coming in that were physically really fit that would suffer physically because they were just overwhelmed cognitively, mentally? I mean, military can do that, obviously, in different settings.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole goal really, was to help people not get flustered. And that's because by the time I was running this program, I was more upperclassmen. And so we'd have the underclassmen come in and they just couldn't handle themselves under pressure. Like they'd get all flustered. They couldn't make decisions. They'd get stressed out, and they just couldn't operate anymore. Some people would shut down. I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to do these things today. Like, and that's just because I think current generations going into college as underclassmen are probably weak. If that's a shot at the younger generations, I'm sorry. I just believe it to be true. I think I would break any one of these kids and probably end up in jail for yelling or something like that. But I digress. What would happen is they would get incredibly flustered. And by the end of the program, it wouldn't matter if someone's yelling at you. It wouldn't matter what's happening. You'd learn how to control your mind, process information, and make the next decision without getting flustered. And that goes a long way in the military in general. Especially all these guys who are training and wanting to be fighter pilots. Like, there's a lot of information coming into a cockpit, and you need to be able to prioritize and execute which one, what's good information, what's bad information. And so that was always the goal of the program by the end, is like you could have 7 guys yelling at you in your face, and you could just stare straight and take what information was needed and then execute on whatever the task was. So I've definitely seen like the progression of people being able to go from this like absolutely can't handle myself to like give me any stressful situation and then I can remain calm and take on the next task.
That's good. Yeah. And the studies, I know we'll dive in a second here, not to get too far off track, but I know military is like the ultimate, need for that to be able to stay focused under pressure. But I'm sure you've seen it in athletics too. I mean, I definitely saw it in all sorts of places where it's like, oh, I have this bar and I have this perfect warm up and I have this squat rack. I squat it every time, and then they get out in the field and it's like if something's not just right, like there's some people that perform better too. And I know that's maybe not directly what the study's looking at, but like I think there's something to being mentally resilient and being able to do that. And I'm sure some people, even garage gym athletes, it's like what happens when it's cold in your garage? Like what happens when when everything isn't perfect, when when someone's a little banged up, when you don't have your music, when you don't have caffeine before, some of the other things we talked about. I think there's a lot of application to some of this.
Yeah, and I think another example of that, I don't know if you've heard of the Michael Phelps coach would like fill his goggles with water and make him swim just to be prepared for anything and everything. And you're right, like a lot of people, well, I mean, there are some people listening to this in the military who might need this skill, but there are a lot of people who are just like garage gym athletes. Yeah, we're talking about just finishing a work day and working out, like the very basic stuff. So how could this be beneficial for someone who's a garage gym athlete? If you're not a military operator, you're not trying to be a fighter pilot, you're not Michael Phelps hopping in a pool trying to win your 47th gold medal or whatever, like how does this apply? Well, it applies because we all get incredibly mentally fatigued and we have to still make decisions and perform. And when I say perform, I mean just perform in life. I remember when I used to finish my workday in the military, going back to our coffee episode, I would drink a cup of coffee before I would go home. And I knew I shouldn't be having caffeine that late in the day. This is like 3, 4 o'clock is when I would probably have the cup of coffee in preparation for going home. And it was just because I'm like, my second life starts, my second shift, and so that caffeine's kicking in around 5 or 6 p.m. when I get home. And then I knew I needed to be a dad and I needed to show up. And you don't have to have caffeine to be able to do those things. You can train yourself to have that mental capacity, because this just happened to me this week to where I get in this unfortunate circumstance where I stack too many meetings occasionally. Now, Mondays are normally my meeting days, but it's not awful. It's not crazy. But this past Monday, I had stacked too many. I added like 2 or 3 extra. So it was legitimately 6 hours of back to back meetings. And I'm leading basically every single one of these meetings too. So I can't be like a passenger, And I didn't work out early. I had 6 hours of meetings and then I got off, did not want to train whatsoever. And it was not just because of like, I don't feel like it. It was that mental drain. I had so much mental fatigue built up. I was like, I don't like, even if I exercise right now, it's going to be like a horrible training session. And so I just pushed through enough to get that 1 minute on the treadmill. Then that 1 minute turned into 2, turned into a warm up, turned into the full training session I was supposed to do for the only what you can carry track. And that just has to do with being able to operate under that mental fatigue. So anytime you do find yourself in that situation, I'd want to urge any garage gym athletes, before we actually hop into the study and talk about the benefits of it, like if you are mentally fatigued, see that as an opportunity to push yourself and not just, you know what, like we talked about, I'll auto regulate and I'll take the day off. It's like, how about you just go do it? Because the more you make that decision, like legitimately, the more mentally tough, if we're going to like put a word on it, the more mentally tough you become and the more capable you become of doing things when you don't want to, when they're not perfect. So I love this topic, for multiple reasons, but let's talk about the actual science behind this one. So the name of the study is Brain Endurance Training Improves and Maintains Chest Press and Squat Jump Performance when fatigued. So there were 91 resistance trained men, 49, wait, and women. So 49 men, 42 women, sorry, aged 18 through 45. And they trained at least 5 times per week for at least 1 year. I'm going to go ahead and pause there for a second. I loved their selection criteria. So 91 resistance trained individuals, ages 18 to 45, trained at least 5 times per week for 1 year. That's like daily over decades, right? Like we're hitting it. The duration of the experiment or the intervention, 6 week intervention with a follow up at week 9. The training protocol, both groups performed 4 sets to failure at 40% of a 6 rep max on bench press and loaded jump squats 5 times per week. Then they had the brain intervention training group where the group performed the incongruent Stroop test during all 3-minute rest intervals, totaling 27 minutes of cognitive work per session. And the control group just rested normally during their resting sets. So Stroop test. Are you familiar with the Stroop test, Dave?
Yeah. I don't know
Yes.
if I've done it before, but yeah, I think we do something like that in football, concussion testing and stuff like that.
So what's interesting about the Stroop test is like anytime I've ever looked at a study and they're trying to induce cognitive load, they always use the Stroop test. There are other tests out there, but this one is the most popular by far. And so it's when someone holds up a card, or this can be, I'm sure there are apps for this, you can find it online, and it'll say the word red, but it'll be in the color green. Like the letters of red will be in green. Does that make sense? So it's like, and then you have to say one or the other. So if I'm like, hey Dave, tell me the color of the words that are coming up, you have to pause just enough to make sure you're getting it right, because it's so easy for our brain just to be like, okay, it says red, I'm going to say red. It says brown, I'm going to say brown. But you have to stop and be like, it says red, but it's the color green. You have to say green. And then it goes to the word brown, but it's the color black, and you have to say black. So it's just enough cognitive load, kind of like put enough mental stress on you. And they were doing this during their 3-minute rest intervals. And that's it. That's what it takes. But the most interesting part about, like, okay, what are some of the results? Well, there were significant performance gains in the people who did the brain endurance training. And so in the primary study, the participants doing the BET improved their reps to failure on the chest press by 35%, and the control group only improved 13%, and their squat jump by 44% versus 13% for control after 6 weeks. There have been other studies on this in endurance training where they're cycling, and they improved their time to exhaustion significantly more than the control groups by upwards of 126% improvement. So overall, this study is quite crazy because it's not that small of a study. 91 people, legit selections, and they are significantly improving rep endurance and overall in other studies that we've seen, aerobic endurance. So I think that this is really awesome. But what are your thoughts on the study as you looked at it and dove in?
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating too. I think you touched on it, but just to be clear, there's two groups performing the exact same physical protocol, and just one group while they're resting is
Mhm.
doing this cognitive thing with it. The other group's doing the exact same amount of sets and reps and everything,
Right.
and there's these differences too. Which that's the fascinating part, is that there's no change or nothing. Like I was trying to think. I'm like, what else could maybe, yeah, almost like looking for flaws. I'm like, what else maybe could contribute to? And I'm like, there's not really anything. Like they controlled it pretty well, and
Yeah,
that was
because
the only.
the other thing is like the select. That's why I like the selection criteria, because you're like, oh well, maybe these people haven't trained in a while and they're super like responders or whatever. But it's like, well, that would have been both groups, right? And so there's none of that. And yeah, like what else could be attributed to that factor? Like it's kind of crazy.
And the things I started to look at that, I'm like, okay, what's the application of this? Like, sure, the protocol would be to follow, like, do the Stroop test while you're resting, but for people that are performing different workouts and those things too, I'm looking at the practicality of it, of like what, and that's where I'll bounce it back to you, is like, what do you see as the, like, for those that, because not everyone's resting 3 minutes in between sets for one, unless you're doing like those types of workouts. But for someone
Mhm.
who's following a workout where it's like, I'm trying to pack in as much as I can into 50 minutes, like, how do you think this would be applied more for that population? Because that's more where I'm curious to think about in my training. I'm like, where can I, like, how can I do this knowing myself that I'm probably not going to pull up a Stroop test thing and be doing that in between sets? Like trying to think of the
Well,
best
I'd
ways to
say
put.
just do that.
Or just do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Try harder.
well, I say 2 things. 1, if you really wanna experiment with this, and let's be real, this is gonna be for people like they selected it in the study. This would be the this would be for people who are doing daily over decades right now, and they're just you're not struggling all that much to stay consistent, right? Like, there's gotta be a certain if I had to set criteria for the garage gym athletes, if you're struggling to get sessions in and you're struggling to do the workouts, like, let's not add mental training to things. Let's not because it's going to make it suck more, and that's something I think that has to be very clearly stated. When you start this, it will suck, and you will be not only more tired at the end of a workout where you're normally tired, you will be mentally tired as well, which can be, and this is all in the acute sense. It's just like any type of training. Like you will be more tired at first, and then over time you will build up endurance and resiliency, and you will super compensate to being a better human being after the training. But initially, it's going to suck. So if there's anything, if you're not like super consistent, I wouldn't add this to your training because it's only going to deter you from being consistent. So I would say that is like my biggest like asterisk before we dive any further. But then as far as like executing as a garage gym athlete, I think if you want to just, hey, I want to do what the study did because the performance increases are insane and it might actually be worth it. Just, I think the Stroop test is the easiest thing that you could possibly do. I haven't looked, but I'm sure that there are just apps that you can get or you can like have your laptop in there. I know that's a little bit crazy, but if you really want to see if it improves your overall endurance or if you have a race coming up, maybe you can like sync these things up. This was only a 6 week intervention. You started some Stroop test stuff like 6 weeks, 8 weeks out from your event. It might be worth adding in there if it doesn't take away from the actual training session if you're so able to perform at the capacity you want. But the most practical way is kind of like I mentioned earlier is like if you're mentally fatigued and you haven't trained that day just from work or life, go train. Train anyway. And I think that if you do that enough, you'll also build up this muscle, right? So I think it doesn't have to be this like legitimate brain exercise training intervention for you to improve. It's just choosing to do it when you don't want to more often because I know if things are perfect for me, I don't really have that guy in the back of my head who's like, "Let's skip, let's not do it." Like that's not very common for me, but it popped up this week because of how mentally fatigued I was due to all of those stacked back-to-back meetings. And so I'm like, yeah, this is a great opportunity to kind of stress test the mental side of my game and push myself to do the exercise, the workout anyway. So I think those two use cases, either if you find yourself in a situation where you're mentally fatigued all the time and it's making you not want to work out, go work out. Like that's a hard, like I don't have any tactics or trick. It's like you don't want to go do it. Like that's it. Or legitimately put in the Stroop test. I might do that. I might try it out. I'd have to have something to measure like if I was going to do it like a before and after because I wouldn't want to do the Stroop test during my rest in perpetuity, but it would be cool to check out like I said for like 6 weeks out testing, did I get better at Murph pre and post, something like that. I think it'd be really cool to add in. Who knows, maybe I'll add it pre Murph this year, like 6 weeks out or something like that.
Yeah, be cool to, because that's the first thing I thought of too is like time of day training. Cause I know I'm looking at my own experience and when I'm on a consistent, I'm training the consistent time. And for years that was first thing in the morning. And like you, it's like, okay, I never have a problem skipping. I'm coming in fresh. It's like rarely other days where unless you totally have like a lousy night of sleep or something and baby's up all night or something. But like other than that, like most of the time it's like that's an easier time to go train. But it's when it's like, okay, well that didn't happen now. The only time I can train today is at 4, and it's like, well, I don't like training at 4. Like, that's usually when I'm winding
Yeah.
that's usually when I'm winding down, but that's the, those are the things that, like you said, of pushing through and just making the decision of like, okay, I'm not judging the performance of a single workout because I think that's where fatigue in general can mask performance, where whether that's, I mean, just like physically, if you're overreaching a little bit, there's gonna be a time where you're not performing as well on a day-to-day basis, but you're still, if you properly deload and all those things, and if you're following a good program, it's like there will be the compensation then that will help with that. But same thing on like with these things when I'm cognitively fatigued, it's like, okay, I may not be showing up the best for that given session, but there's a long term there's a long term payoff for this too. Like it's not being like, okay, well this session was terrible, so I shouldn't have trained at all. Because that's what even the after fact that can go into that of like, well, see, I probably shouldn't have trained at this time because it obviously didn't work out. But it's like looking at it from wide. a long enough timeline to know that there's some short-term benefits for a longer term thing, especially for the garage gym athlete, the person who's just trying to train for life and daily over decades. Start taking that longer term timeline, then who cares if your one workout wasn't as good as last week's if you're making yourself better over time.
Yeah, and I think, well, when's the last time you feel like you trained like really mentally fatigued? Like you were like, I don't want to, I did it anyway.
Probably like at least once a week.
Yeah.
In all honesty, like with 3 kids right now and like with not like our life's super stressful, but like there's plenty of days where like just work because I haven't been doing the morning with like Lindsay and our time, like Lindsay and my time being prioritized in the morning, like getting the kids all ready to go and everything. Like usually morning's the freshest time, but now sometimes it's midday, sometimes it's afternoon. And those are the times I don't in midday I can sometimes be fresh, but like when I have to train in the afternoon, I don't love training in the afternoon. But I think that inconsistency of schedule where for someone who's really routine, it's easy for me to be like, well, I want to block it in at the same time all the time. And I've realized over time that it's probably better that sometimes I train at 2:30, sometimes I train at 11, sometimes I do train in the morning, but like when it's all over the place, not like it's sporadic every single time where I don't know what I'm training, but like I think there's benefit in that of being able to just show up and do it even when I'm not 100% fresh.
Yeah, I've always said that I'm incredibly disciplined, but not very routined. And I don't think that they're the same thing at all. And so if because routine would be I wake up, I work out at 5 a.m. every day, I don't miss. And there's a certain level of respect for that. I'm not that guy. But will I hit 7 training sessions this week? 100%. I did maybe it'll be 5 a.m., maybe 11 a.m., maybe 1 p.m., maybe 7 p.m. if I have to. It's just going to get done. And I think I do think that that level of resiliency, over time, like there's been twice this week where I had to move my training to evenings. And this was not a mental fatigue thing. It was just like same as you. I'm like, I don't really like to work out in the evenings, but I'm like, well, you have the time right now or it doesn't happen at all. What are you going to do? And so I do it. You know what I mean? And normally too, like going back to this week where I actually did train mentally fatigued, I don't feel mentally fatigued after the session, which is kind of different than probably what's happening here. Uh, because I just think that there's a benefit, a lot of different types of benefit. There's like the uh, I don't know, placebo effect. There's just the fact that you feel like you did something when you didn't want to. For me, that's like a big win, and I know I'm getting better there. I think just you got to get the sessions in at the end of the day, and then if you actually want to go take it to that next level and train your brain. I think there are a lot of ways to do this. You could force yourself to do math problems like I made cadets do back in the day, where you could do the Stroop test. But one thing I wanted to get into of like the mechanisms behind it, because this has become more popular, and I did a podcast on it sometime last year that no one has been talking about, and then it came up more, and it's kind of like things that I've talked about in my book, Killing Comfort. David Goggins talks about, but the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, right? And it's associated with attention, motivation, and emotion. And activity in this region decreases during mental fatigue. And this is the part of your brain that can actually be trained. So every time you don't want to and you do, you are actually training that portion of your brain, the ACC. And so that is what I think people should focus on, is that there's an actual mechanism behind this. It's not, there's an area of the brain behind it. It's not some like woo woo like thing. And I say this in my book, Killing Comfort, where if I ask 10 people today, hey, do you believe in the power of the mind? Like it's a very powerful thing, like your thoughts, attitudes, behavior. Are those things important? Is the mind really powerful? I bet I'd probably get a 10 out of 10. Yes. Right. And it'd be the same thing if I said, hey, do you think physical training is important? Do you think training your body is an important thing to do? I asked 10 different people. Most likely I'm going to get 10 out of 10. Yes, I think that's important, at least with the people I hang out with, right? And so, but if I said, okay, 10 out of 10, you think physical training is important. How many of you are out of these 10 people? How many of you are actually training and you know it's important? Now we get down to 7, right? It's like 7 people are like, well, 30% are like, I know it's important, but I'm not doing it. 7 out of the 10 are like, I know it's important and I do it. Then I go to the brain training side. I'm like, you know it's important. How many of you are doing it? 1, probably 0 people have any kind of brain training program to increase the capability of their mind. It's just not something that people do. And I've thrown out this theory over the last 2 years because of AI, ChatGPT. This is what's coming for us next. So many people are shutting down their mental faculties. They're not having to create or take on as much cognitive load because, all of these AI platforms can do most of the critical thinking for us. And so you don't have to worry about thinking as much. This is only going to decrease the strength of the ACC in your mind, in your brain. I don't want to say mind, like your actual brain. It's going to decrease the strength of that portion of your brain. And so people are only going to get more out of shape, lazier, fatter, sicker because we're going to further shut down this part of our brain that we have to force ourselves to do things that we don't want to make it better. Now, if sitting at work and I don't even have to force myself to think harder or think critically because I have AI can do it for me, we're just going to be in an even worse situation. My whole point in saying any of that is I I used to, and I published Killing Comfort in 2020, really pre AI, wrote it from 2018 to 2020. And I was saying then that I think some sort of brain training program is important for you to increase the capacity of your mind. But now with AI coming online and already MIT, I think, put out studies saying like it is very, very, very bad. And they were looking at, maybe we could cover the study specifically. They were looking at students who utilize AI. They couldn't recall anything. They're basically dumber. They just were dumber and since they used AI. So we are going to have to start to train our minds, start to train our brains, just like, fitness became a thing in the 50s and 60s because the world started to get more convenient. Refrigerators came online, right? Everything got easier. So we were like, well, now we have to jog around the neighborhood, right? And like now it's like, oh, well, everything's getting easier and easier mentally. We're going to have to whip out the, the fifth grade math problems and do those things. So this isn't like, oh, that's neat. I think it's going to be a mandatory part of human beings like being capable in the next couple of years. I think it's going to be very important.
That's so good. I think I totally agree on all of it. I think the thing to really emphasize is something you don't want to do. And that's where getting back to who you're talking about. If someone's like, man, I can't even get 3 training sessions in a week, that's obviously something you don't want to do enough that you're not doing it. So that might be your thing right now. But for those that have been around Garage Matthew for a long time, those that are listening, and a lot of people listening are interested in human performance, are interested in training their body. If you enjoy doing cold plunges and workouts and that's no
Right.
problem for you, that's not training that part of your brain that you need to. And that's where I fall in a trap of, because it's like people would look at the things I'm doing in terms of like the runs I do and how I push myself and the workouts I do and the weights I lift. And it's like, oh, he's pushing himself, he's working hard. But if you've been doing that for as long as I have, as long as you have, that's not enough for some people. And that's where sometimes you don't need a cold plunge or some like crazy challenge or diet to like go chase. Like you just need to put your phone away. You need to like be present when you're around your family. Like you need, like, those are sometimes the hard things of like turning off distractions, of training your brain, of having, like you said, a specific brain practice to follow. That's not like actually get out a pen and write some thoughts out of like out of your mind, and like don't just open up your Google or AI as soon as you have a question on something. Like I think there's a lot of application beyond training to this. Obviously, if you're having trouble getting your sessions in, like start there. But if you've been doing it for long enough, that's not like, that's exactly what the study's highlighting, is these are people that were doing the thing for a long time in terms of the physical thing. And this took them to a significantly higher level.
Yeah. Benjamin Franklin said you should ask yourself everything, what good shall you do this day? You're supposed to answer that question like in the morning. I tweaked that to what hard thing will you do this day? And my definition of a hard thing is pushing forward against your own desire plus daily over decades. So doing something that is against your desire. So to your point, I want to work out today. Can't be my hard thing. And I used to kind of joke around, but also truthfully say like doing the dishes at night was my hard thing because I just didn't want to. But now it's got to the point where like I want to because I'm like I enjoy having a clean kitchen in the morning when I wake up. So it's not really a challenge for me anymore. So I'm like, oh man, that's not even my hard thing anymore yet. But that's the funny thing about hard things and pushing yourself to do them is like you push yourself to do it for long enough, it's not really hard anymore. It just becomes a part of who you are and you can take on the next thing. And so you don't actually have to do that thing. When I say daily over decades, like there's some level of consistency in there, but you need to push yourself to do something you don't want to until it becomes automatic, that habit level version, right? So that could be anything. It could be like, yeah, if you hate journaling, but you know it's good for you, do it. And then who knows, maybe after 6 weeks or 6 months, it's not difficult anymore. Time to pick a new thing, but we should always have that thing every single day that's hard, and it should be repeated, because I also think that if you're doing different hard things all the time, I don't think that there's as much benefit there. And that's just my 2 cents on doing hard things and becoming a better human being.
And different hard things not being as beneficial in your mind because, like, you don't have enough time to, like, to fully like, you're almost jumping from thing to thing that you don't actually
Yeah,
conquer that
and
hard thing?
it might actually be there might be some benefit mentally, like even to the ACC, right? That part of your brain. There could be benefit there if like, okay, today my hard thing is doing a workout. Tomorrow my hard thing is having a tough conversation. Tomorrow my hard thing will be doing the dishes. I think that there's a certain mental capacity that's building up there, but you as a person don't really get any benefit. So I that's the only real reason I think it should be something that's repeated for a long period of time, because let's pick up a new habit or let's move down a path that's making us better. So like if you want to write a book and you don't want to write every day, do that. Then the book's done. It's like that was your hard thing for a year and now it's like, okay, moving on. I wrote a book. What's next? You just do the next thing, as opposed to like I wrote one page of a book, then I did the dishes, then I went for a run. It's like, okay, well, I'm sure you're mentally tough, but you haven't achieved anything, you know? And so that I think that's why I push people to do one specific thing for as long as they can.
Yeah, another application, just as you're talking to another application for some of the conversations I've been having with some of the athletes too is, like, it's okay to, like, change up a track to sacrifice a like and I talk to people that are, say we have strength track and hard to kill and endure and only what you can carry, and people wanna do so much all the time. Like, that's the cool thing about our community is they're like, "Well, I wanna" it's the whole, like, "I wanna get stronger and leaner and more aerobically fit and, like, lose fat and gain muscle," and it's like, "Yes, I do too," but it's like, it's okay to
Yeah.
sometimes get out of your comfort zone might be like, "Hey, I've been following the strength track for like 2 years now." And there's that little bit in the back of your mind, you're like, hard to kill would probably be good to follow for a couple cycles, but like, I don't know if I really want to. Like those types of things even are little ways that you can get outside your comfort zone a bit and be like, okay, I'm going to jump on a track that like I hear a lot of people talking about only what you can carry. I don't know. They also say that it's hard and like it's okay to do those things. Or if you haven't done Meet Yourself Saturday in a while, like that's exactly what those workouts are designed to do is they're not all of them have a physical they do have a physical purpose, but, like, some of them are just for the sake of doing those things. So just kinda do an audit of where you're at if you have any of those things too, and it's, like, the quicker you can take action on it too, I think there's a lot to the benefits of it too, where people, they just keep kicking the can down the road and do that, and we've been talking that a lot with our kids lately. We've been talking about, what does it mean to be obedient? We're saying, "Is this being obedient?" And we heard it somewhere and it, like, works really well for them. We're like, obedient means right away, all the way with a happy heart. And it's like, now they recite those, they're like, right away, all the way, happy heart. Because it's like, well, if you know you're supposed to do something, like, don't wait, go, like, do it now, do it all the way, like, not partially. Don't do it with a bad attitude. Like, those are things that, like, we've been trying to instill in them. And then I say those things and I'm like, man, that applies to me too. There's a lot of ways where
Oh, dude.
I'm not doing things right away. I'm not doing them all the way, or I'm not doing them with a happy heart. So it's just for those with kids out there, it's been working really well for us.
Oh, dude, adults need those reminders all the time. I'll never
Absolutely.
forget, wrote all those kids books, Way of the Warrior Kids, Way of the Warrior Kid. There's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them or something like that. But I read these with my kids, like, when they were much younger, and it was just like I was like, "Damn, all these lessons are so good." Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to be a kid, and Jocko knows that. It's just like these amazing lessons about how to tackle life and be consistent and work on projects, like, small ways, in small ways, all the time. Like, there are a lot of those reminders that we need, and to your point of, like, choosing a different track, this goes back to what we talked about last week with some of our fitness regrets is, like, those are the things I wish I would have done, right? It's like, it's okay to just go on the endure track for 12 weeks and like not focus so much on strength. Those are the things I wish I would have done in my strength journey. And if you if you zoom out far enough, you'll realize everything's going to be okay. Like even if you actually lost some strength, you gain it back so fast. As long as you're still doing the training, like it's not really a difficult thing. So it's nothing really to worry about. Uh, but I could see, I see the pain in that as well. Like losing strength really sucks. Losing conditioning really, really sucks. Speaking of, like, I did Condition Me to Gray over the weekend, because that was our Meet Yourself Saturday, and I really wanted to do it. I didn't finish it, and I was pissed, and I was like, I have excuses. If you wanna hear my excuses, I'll give them to you. Yeah, nobody wants to hear the excuses, but I didn't finish it, and I've consistently finished that workout. Alright, I'm gonna give you my excuse anyway.
I figured you
I
would.
think So I'm doing it when I used to do it, I had an old Schwinn Airdyne, and I always did my runs outside, and now I'm running on the True Form trainer, and I'm doing the Rogue Echo Bike. The Rogue Echo Bike doesn't wanna give you a calorie. The Rogue Echo Bike's like, "No, these are my calories," and I don't remember the Schwinn Airdyne being like that because my run times, they're probably slightly harder, but they're, like, kinda within the realm I know. I need to finish, like, 7, 8-minute miles to be able to finish Condition Me to the Grave. I'm spending, like, normally, it's like the rower and the Airdyne were like 1 for 1. The Rogue Echo Bike is like 30, 40% more time than the rower now, and I'm like, "I don't know if I can finish this with the machines that I have," and now I'm like, "Well, I wanna try," so, like, I wanna do it. If you don't know what Condition Me to the Grave is, you can go Google it, but, yeah, that's my excuse, and also something that sucks to be like, "Oh, man, I can't finish that workout anymore." Whether it's actual machinery or I'm less fit, I don't know, but now I wanna fix that problem.
But if you never go back and test those things either, because you get comfortable in your training, then you can think you're doing, and not to say that you're not doing better, there's probably legitimate reason for it. Like in different cycles, it's like if you haven't been doing as much conditioning stuff in that way, you may not always be like, you're not going to always be performing as your top end strength and conditioning all those ways. But like to check back on those things, like you said, even with Murph and being like, I think that was it last year or something where you didn't, one of the years you didn't have a good Murph time. You're like, okay, well, that's going to change because that hasn't been like, I haven't seen a time like that in a while.
Yeah. It was like Mark Zuckerberg posted on Facebook that he got like a sub 40 minute, and I was like, "What? Like, you can't be faster than me at Murph right now." And he's not, but anyway, he's getting up there. So I can't let Mark Zuckerberg beat me in at my own workout.
Mark, if you're listening,
He's
challenge is
for
on.
sure listening. He tunes into the Garage and Athlete podcast every week. But let's put a bow on this. Ultimately, what do you think big takeaway is for garage gym athletes if they want to incorporate some sort of bet brain endurance training? Do you think it's worth it?
I do. Yeah. I think, I mean, I think some form of it, whether that's the formal way we talked about of like the Shroop test would be an easy way if your workouts are set up that way, or just all the other things we're talking about. I think looking at where you're getting comfortable in terms of like if you're always a 5 a.m. workout and your schedule allows it, like try working out at right after work for the next 3 weeks and see what happened. Like if your schedule allows it and it doesn't get in the way of family time and other commitments, I think there's little things like that that you'd be surprised how because anytime you switch workout times like that, even that sucks for a while, and then all of a sudden you're used to it, and you're like, "Oh, I feel good again." And then like those are the things that I think just taking an audit of where you're at, the things that maybe you're getting a little comfortable in, and finding ways to do it. I'm intrigued by the formal brain training side of it because that's something I've kind of let get away, and at least in terms of training stuff, I'm not doing any brain training while doing it, but I try and mix it up in other ways. But maybe that's not enough. So I'd be curious to implement some of these things.
Yeah, I'm most interested in legitimately putting the Stroop test because if I'm giving takeaways for the athletes, like, yeah, I think train when you don't want to, train when it's hard, train when you're tired, train when like do it, and that'll make you better. But the scientific side of me of this one's like, no, I want to actually do the Stroop test because both of us, with 3 kids and the life that we have, like, there's a lot of like mental demand, like cognitive load in a day. And when my brain's not on point, everything else is worse. Like when I'm just like not, I don't really snap anymore. Like that was a younger version of me. I'm pretty good at like controlling emotions and stuff. I'm good with all those kind of things, but you're just not as present, I think is what I struggle with if I'm like really mentally tired. I just want to shut down. I don't really want to engage. So that's the bigger problem. And I wonder if that would change if I did mental training, just added, hey, this is what I do in my rest sets now. You got to do it 5 days a week for 6 weeks. It's not, I'm already training. Like, would it be that hard to add? Also, no, this would be annoying as hell for me. Like sometimes we've talked about this when I'm in a training session and if I am mentally fatigued, I don't even want to talk about doing tempo because that's too much cognitive load. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Like I just Like sometimes I can't even, my brain can't even handle that, which means I should go do that thing, right? And so I think I might incorporate it. I think I'm going to do a training session this week with Stroop tests in between sets and just see like, do you really want to do it for 6 weeks or whatever? And then if it's something I want to do, I do think I would be more strategic about it and like try and put it 6 to 8 weeks out from doing Murph or something like that, as
Well,
opposed to just randomly doing it for 6 weeks.
well, if it's something you don't want to do, then you still need to put it 6 to 8 weeks out from
Well,
because that's
here's my
probably
thinking. I'm way more interested to see how it will help me in my daily life and not as much in a training session because I don't feel like I struggle all that much with like, oh, I don't want to do another rep, so I'm not going to. Like I really don't struggle with that too much. I just don't run into that. Like if I'm doing Murph, like I already have the mindset. I'm like I have so many benchmarks. Like I know what's good and what's bad and how hard I have to push myself and how much it's going to hurt. So I don't know if it actually would help that workout that much. Maybe from a mental capacities in some way it helps, but I don't think my performance wouldn't get all that much better. But if it can help me in my daily life to where I just don't get like mentally tired or fatigued, or maybe my capacity at work is even increased, like that's where I'm really interested to see if it would help.
Stroop it up. I guess that's
Screw
the
it up.
look for there's got to be an app out there. We'll
There's got
find
to be, or you find it on your computer. Well, that's it for this one, athletes. I really appreciate you all listening. And if you didn't catch, I had the shameless plug multiple times in there for Killing Comfort. And something you might not know about Killing Comfort is I lowered the price. It's been probably 2 years, 2.5 years. I lowered the price as low as Amazon would allow me to go and still have it on their platform. And that's because I just want as many people to access it as humanly possible, which also means the lowest possible price that you can put on Amazon means Amazon gets most of that money and I get very, very, very little. So it doesn't even help me that much personally, financially, if you buy it. It will only help you if you get the book and read it. And so that was something I implemented a long time ago because I really just wanted people to get in there, read the book, and make some changes in their life. So go check out Killing Comfort if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate it. For all of our Garage Gym athletes out there doing Daily Over Decades Challenge or in the community, really appreciate each and every single one of you. Keep at it. And if you want to be one of our athletes, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial. We would love to have you. But remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you.